This September 12th, SON Estrella Galicia are back in London with their micro festival at Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage. With live music, beer culture, street food and workshops, SON Estrella Galicia is the musical arm of the family-owned independent Estrella Galicia beer brand, which has been creating unforgettable music experiences since 2009. The September the 12th event will be headlined by Coach Party with support from the New Weaves, as well as yet-to-be-announced DJ sets and local music selectors. There'll be a clothing repair workshop to customise your repaired clothes, a local food vendor serving 0 kilometre food with veggie and vegan options, a Soundcrafters interactive workshop, and a beer pouring workshop. Alongside the London event, there'll be a series of new micro-festivals in Madrid, A Coruña, Barcelona later in 2024, and Berlin and Granada in 2025, reflecting a truly global approach from SON Estrella Galicia. So if you're in London, September the 12th, swing by Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage for SON Estrella Galicia. Tickets are available now via Dice. As an independent music podcast, 101 Part-Time Jobs highly recommends DistroKid as the best solution to putting out your own music online. You can join 1 million other artists from all across the world putting out their own music on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else across the DSPs where people are listening to your music. My dream as a kid was to run a small little label, and now with DistroKid, getting music out online is the easiest it ever has been, making 100% of your own royalties while paying a small annual fee. And that fee's even smaller as a 101 Part-Time Jobs listener. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get 30% off your first year putting out your own music on DistroKid. Getting your own music out into the world has never been easier. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get the best deal you can. Hey, how's it going? Hope you're doing good. You're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder. Here's where we hear from musicians and artists, interesting ones, about their life of being a musician, whether it's working in the day and playing by night or figuring out how to do it in a sustainable way. These are the kinds of stories that I'm interested in, especially now in the streaming era. On today's episode, we've got the pretty damn awesome Bill Callahan on the show. Being a musician for over 30 years, Bill has had a life in music. I wanted to dig into that and some particular moments throughout his years that are the meaningful ones. So I hope you enjoy this show. I've got a few friends who are Bill Callahan obsessed, so I hope this does it justice for those people, and I hope you enjoy it too. Cheers for being here. If you do like this episode, feel free to subscribe. We put out 2 episodes every week with interesting, exciting artists that we've been listening to. We'd love to have you along. So if you click that follow button on Spotify or Apple, you'll make sure you'll get notified every time we put out a new episode. So thank you. Bill Callahan's latest record, Resuscitate, is out now on his long-running label Drag City Records. It's a live album recorded in Chicago. It's out now, and you can catch Bill on tour in Europe, UK and Ireland next month in September. He's playing in Paris, Brussels, Dublin, Manchester, and then 4 nights at London's Institute of Contemporary Arts. I'm not sure if there are any tickets left for it, but you can try and look for some. Those are going to be some incredible shows. All right, coming up after the jump, it's Bill Callahan here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. How long have you had that studio?
I'd say 4 or 5 years.
And you built it yourself?
It used to be a garage, yeah, a double garage, and now it's a studio and a apartment and a bathroom. Pretty sweet.
Yeah, nice. I bet that feels so rewarding to have like an HQ and like a place where you can work and write and be creative every day.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's essential, like, especially like we moved into this house like 5 years ago, and there was nowhere for me to write. There's just like, you know, there was just three bedrooms and then a big room downstairs, and it's like, yeah, I rented a trailer for a while this was being remodeled, and
Okay.
yeah, it's as soon as I come in here, it's just like instant peace and hope and happiness.
Yeah, awesome. Have you got some
Yeah.
good artworks in there and like things that make you feel happy?
Yeah, I've got like right behind me is this. It's one of those paintings that like every time I look at it, I see, even though it looks fairly simple, but every time I look at it, I see something different.
That's cool. Have you ever sort of had any kind of, and I feel like there's a spectrum of this, right? But of the synesthesia where a song can be a blue and green song, or it's a yellow, or it's a red.
Um, I took LSD when I was like 22, and I listened to Jimi Hendrix, and I saw like purple smoke, purple haze coming out of the speakers, which was pretty cool. But I do, as far as my records, I, yeah, when it comes to making a cover, doing the cover art, I started, I think like what color are songs as a whole, like you don't want to put like a neon pink album cover on a record that would just destroy the record unless that's the way the record sounds.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of like an abstract, I don't really have synesthesia, but
Yeah.
it's just kind of like somebody, like some spirits, please tell me what color these songs are. And
Yeah.
you
I
know,
feel like artwork, maybe similar to music videos, it maybe doesn't have the ability to like ruin the sound, but it can definitely elevate the sound, the sonics.
yeah, that's what's so one of the many things that's so disheartening about streaming. Like we used to like you would look at study the record cover while the record was playing, and
Mm.
you know that the art is kind of, I mean, you still get it. Like record streaming things still have covers for now. I mean, probably eventually people probably won't even bother making a cover for anything. But yeah,
That the Resuscitate cover is pretty groovy.
yeah, came out good.
I like the way that it's not necessarily immediate. It's not like Bill Callahan live. It's its own thing.
I mean, I thought about giving it a title like Live in Chicago, but yeah, maybe it might draw people in a little bit first. Like, what is this? And then they get kind of like hooked into the artwork instead of just, some people just don't like or buy live records, and they generally sell like a fraction of what a studio record
Mm-hmm.
would sell, but it's not going to happen again. And also just captures, in this case particularly, captures the songs in a state that they're not even on in the record. They're kind of evolved into this whole different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've spoken about how those songs evolved before, and I've read in a couple of interviews, how you like that process of how a song morphs over time, playing it so many times, playing it with different players and different fellow musicians, and how that's kind of core to the job.
Yeah. I mean, maybe possibly to a fault, I tend to record. I like to record a song as soon as it's finished, and sometimes I think, oh, I should tour this song first and like really get to know it, so that it reaches not its end point, but a much more developed point, which I did that with A River Ain't Too Much to Love. That was like the only record that we toured that for like 10 days or something right before recording it. And that, definitely had an effect on, I would say those songs have changed the least since they've, if I do those live, they've changed the least than most of my other songs that I've released. But usually I don't have the patience. And I also just I like the feeling of, it's like the studio is the maternity ward where the songs get born. And babies are kind of ugly when they're first born. No one wants to admit that, but
do you think there's ever an end to a song? Like, is there ever a fully finished version of a tune?
I think maybe for a different type of, I don't know, like someone like AC/DC, where it's just kind of, I don't know how much improv they do. Might like throw in some city names or wherever city they're playing.
Yeah.
But I think their songs are pretty locked in and, perfect. Those are perfect grooves, perfect, there's no need for those to really change in any way. But so yeah, I think a specific, not my stuff, but
not your stuff.
For me, that's like my worst nightmare is like having to play a song this exact same way for the rest of my life. It's like, unless maybe if I wrote the perfect song that didn't, or maybe if I just cover a AC/DC song, but
that's good. I loved how you said once or twice that music's like pathology, in the sense that it's like a condition to write. And it's not necessarily something that is like on or off, or it's not something maybe you've even like chosen to do. It's maybe like just part of you. Is that something that has that relationship changed over the years, over the last 30 plus years?
Well, the idea of it being a pathological exercise really only occurred to me maybe a year or year and a half ago. I'd always thought of it as a positive thing that kind of saved my life, or saved my life from being excruciatingly dull. I wouldn't have killed myself, but I would have had a very unsatisfying life, I think, if I hadn't let myself follow the musical path. But only recently, like, I've started wondering if this thing that is like my fairy godmother, but maybe it's got negative or pathological sides too. And I thrive in my studio, like I said at the beginning of this talk. All my problems melt away. And I'm in control of everything, and I can forget everything except the music. But also I have this drive when when I'm not in here, when I'm not on the road, there's this little itch inside me that like wants to get away from whatever I'm doing, and make music. And sometimes that seems like it's too much of an escape, because I think, maybe, I do have a well-rounded life now, especially before I had kids. I was just kind of working on music for 15 hours a day. And so I do have a much more well-rounded life now, but I'm still making that. There's that old vestigial part of me that's like, remember when
Yeah.
I could do this for 15 hours and really satisfy that itch, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not the best at managing my life, like taking care of everything, you know, all the other stuff, you know, like doctor visits and all that stuff you have to do as a adult.
Yeah.
So that's what makes me, yeah, it's such a solace to do work, and you know, maybe I'm seeking too much solace and not facing everything head on that I should be.
Those 15-hour days, or even now when you have the long stints of playing, are you always writing for that amount of time, or are you noodling around, playing around, maybe giving it, 5 minutes of nonsensical playing? When you think to those long days, what is most of that time doing?
Most of the time was done just like sitting and doing nothing and kind of reflecting on what I had done that day or what I wanted to do. It depends also what stage I am in making a record, you know, like uh, if I have lyrics, then I'm just quadruple trillion checking them to make sure that they're up to snuff. And, and if I have lyrics, then I'm trying to find the right melody and guitar parts and stuff and plan like arrangements around it. But yeah, that's when you actually have something, that's a uh different ball game. Like it's like the bowling ball is rolling down the alley towards the pins, and it's just like it has momentum, and you just have to kind of ride the ball. But when you have nothing, yeah, it's just a lot of just messing around and thinking about sentences and words and what sounds of a guitar, like how they make you feel and
Yeah.
things like that. You know, that also a 15-hour day is pretty unhealthy, and I realized like I can do the same amount of work if I have 4 hours.
Mm.
It's very luxurious to just kind of extend it to 15, but it's really not necessary. I realized like I don't know, 10 years ago or something like that. Yeah.
I just saw an Elliott Smith clip from, I was just scrolling through Instagram earlier, and there was one that came up, and it was him saying when he was working a job and he only had 3 or 4 hours in a day to do what he wanted to do, he'd get a lot more done in those 3-4 hours than if he had all the time in the world to do whatever he wanted to do.
Yeah. It's pretty much true. I mean, sometimes the time does tend to fly by when you're working, and sometimes you look up and it's like, fuck, I don't know if I can swear, but
Yeah.
you say, I wish I could, if I just had 30 more minutes, I didn't have to go like pick up my kids or
And it's always going to be that last time, isn't it? You're always going to be like, oh no, not 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes.
Yeah. But most of the time I'm like, oh, thank God it's over.
This show's called 101 Part-Time Jobs, and it's kind of partly now it's kind of morphed into the idea, for me anyway, that kind of everything in life is a bit of a job. Communicating with your partner is a role, is a job. Going to wash your underwear is a job. Going to the dentist or the doctors, even the good things are like jobs. And so when I say job, I don't mean it in a negative way. And I think maybe I'm sort of projecting myself there, in that like I was very scared that my life would become one big job and I'd be bored for the rest of my life. So now I'm trying to sort of flip the script and say, well, everything's a job, so do it well and enjoy it. That's what I'm trying to think of.
Yeah. I mean, all those things are being responsible, and being responsible is a full-time job, like there's no break from that, because you're responsible for what you do on Earth with your time, and nobody else is responsible for that. And that is exhausting.
It's scary.
Yeah, but it's also, once you realize that, it's kind of empowering, like I can do this thing and then it's done. Yeah, I just took a vacation, family vacation, like last couple of weeks, which kind of the first time, not the first time, but it's been years since we've been on a family vacation. And even that is a responsibility. You got a responsibility to have fun.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Are you thinking about songwriting on holiday?
I mean, this time I thought it'd be good. I realized that it's good to take breaks.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just kind of fully embracing the break, the break from it, and hopefully like come back,
Yeah.
reinvigorated.
What's the latest thing that's been exciting you, if there is one thing?
I've never seen The Sopranos, and me and my wife has started watching that. We're on season 2. It's so good and so fun, and that James Gandolfini is just like astounding actor. So that's something I look for. We watch, like, try to fit an episode in before we fall asleep at night.
Yeah, that's a nice routine.
Something that's yeah.
I was thinking, actually, my friend Sam, who plays in a great group called Bow Jockey, we were discussing your songs, and he loved how there's that in that tune Pigeons. The first line is "Hi, I'm Johnny Cash," and it ends, regards L. Cohen. And he's a great lyricist. He's a great songwriter. Sam is, and he was like, I wonder if he was thinking about letters at that time, and kind of like the meaning of letters and the approach of letters in song, like writing a letter.
I wasn't. I mean, I just say that in that song because that's Leonard Cohen says that in a song, and Johnny Cash. That was Johnny Cash's like signature opening line. So I was really just like stealing verbatim from those guys. But I do like. Yeah, I never really thought of songs and letters seem very different to me, And I have started, a couple of friends of mine, we've started like writing letters again, which I used to, before the internet, I loved. I used to write tons of letters to my friends and family. And it's, it's way different than what you write in an email these days. And now that's usually been reduced even further into a text. But writing letters, I think it's really what I tend to do is, I try to, like, one of the responsibilities of writing a letter is summing up, recapping what has happened in your life since you last wrote a letter, 2 or 3 months ago, or it forces you to think back on all what stands out, what was funny, what was tragic, in my last 2 or 3 months, and that's not like that isn't how I would approach writing a song.
I often think about how life can be meaningless unless you give it meaning.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you can lead a meaningless life pretty easily if you want to.
Have you ever almost fallen into the trap of pushing away songwriting?
Maybe just for like 4 hours or something. There's probably been a couple times throughout 30 years where I thought, maybe I should just quit. But it didn't last long, and I really don't know what else I would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it that would pull you back? Was it the fun of it, or knowing that you want to progress your like career, if that's not a funny word to say it?
Just like not giving up, like just seeing like, okay, let's see what I can do if I don't quit and if I just do it for the rest of my life. Yeah, just out of curiosity, really.
Was there a time when you were kind of battling financially to keep playing music?
Yeah, I mean, I knew, I had jobs early on, and then I would still write stuff when I got home. But, the usual story, I was like, usually had like manual labor jobs, and I would just be too exhausted to concentrate on anything. I just want to watch TV and have a couple beers and go to bed. So yeah, that was really hard to. I did manage it though. Like I worked at KFC while I was recording my first album. um, that was, so it was doable, but I was young but really, as far as finances, like what I did was the last job I had was I was looking after a developmentally disabled woman in her house, and I did that for maybe a year. I'd already put out, I think, "Sound to the Sky." My first album was already out, and then the second record, "Forgotten Foundation," was also it came out while I worked looking after this woman. Although I'd recorded it before I got the job. Um, Probably when I worked at KFC, and I saved up, I think, $10,000, and I was like staying on. My friend let me like sleep on his couch for free, so I like managed to save up, yeah, like 10 grand, and then I quit my job, and moved from Maryland to California, and I was like, by the time this 10 grand runs out, I'm gonna like have to be making it in music, I have to have an income. And I was down to, I had like $150 left in the bank, and I recorded Julius Caesar, my third record, and didn't have any money coming in from the music. But then I went out one day. I was living in a house with like 3 or 4 other people, and when I got back, there's this post-it note on my bedroom door. It said, "Drag City, my record label, called Kim Gordon listed you in her top 10 in Rolling Stone, some list of like, records that she's listening to," which at the time was a huge deal because like no one had ever, it was the biggest exposure that I ever had. And I said, "Kim Gordon mentioned you in Rolling Stone, and Drag City is sending you your first royalty check." Like Drag City was so excited that they called me to say like, we're finally gonna send you a royalty check. And then that came like, I had 150 left in the bank, and then I got my first royalty check, and then, which wasn't huge, but it was enough to pay the rent.
What year was that?
93 maybe.
And so you had like a still good run after that of selling physical records and people listening to music on physical copy.
Oh yeah, totally. And I pressed up my first record myself with KFC money, and I was able to I would take that down. Back in those days, like you could just take it to an independent record store, and even if they never heard of you, but they would just take 3 or 4 copies, 10 copies if it was like in a big city. But that was a great way to make money, just like take it direct to the store.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely had decades of was exciting and made me money.
Yeah.
Was also relatable, because I loved buying records.
Mm-hmm.
So I understood why people were buying it. Yeah, so I don't particularly love streaming.
Yeah.
But that is what's happening now. But it's not. It was a lot more exciting when people cared about a physical object.
Hey, thanks so much for the time and speaking with me, Bill. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I love hearing these kinds of stories and kind of I don't know, whatever people call it, like lore, or you know, those kinds of features. I mean, similar as a magazine reader and a writer, but more reader, is that obviously you don't get huge magazines. You don't get the weeklies anymore, where there's 3 different weeklies in every country, where you read about these kinds of features and read these kinds of stories. Have you? Were you into reading magazines?
It's funny that you asked that, because I was just this morning. I just went to a drugstore to get some COVID tests and this mouthwash that's supposed to kill COVID germs. Like it helps you not spread it. It doesn't like cure it or anything. But and I walked down the magazine aisle, and I remembered, like, I was like, my kids don't know the joy of a magazine. You know, they don't. If I brought one home, I was like, should I get one for them? And they were like, they wouldn't even look at it, you know. But when I was a kid, I would get like 2 magazines a year, and I would just like look at them endlessly for years. Like, this is my magazine, you know, like, you know.
What were they, like Rolling Stone?
No, I remember I don't know if it's still going, but there was this sci-fi magazine called Omni. It was American, I think. I just had one copy of that I used to, you know, it had all the cool pictures of outer space and sci-fi stuff that I don't think I even read the articles.
I remember my older brother used to get Kerrangs and NME, and he would never throw them away. And so maybe 5 years after they released, I found a big pile under his bed. And it was interesting reading about these bands that the magazines were writing about 5 years previous. But, you know, the bands had typically written 1 or 2 more albums, and maybe they were going on tour, and maybe I was going to see them because I was old enough now. And I used to love something about an old story about a band, not too old, you know, 5-10 years, but I've really enjoyed that. And I really just found myself immersed in it and just really enjoying spending time with it.
Yeah, it's like being in a waiting room for an old doctor.
Hey, just to end with, I've worked a dozen. I think I've worked about 30 something part-time jobs in my life, and I'm 33. Maybe one for each year, actually. Then, and all of them, I've kind of made a lot of gaffes, a lot of mistakes and fuck ups by smashing glasses, working behind the bar accidentally, or kind of like, if I was doing a driving job, I'd usually sort of reverse up into a wall or something. And not that I chose to or enjoyed doing it, but it sort of always end up happening. And I wonder if you've made any memorable work gaffes in your lifetime.
I do remember once I had a job like in a warehouse packing up art supply orders for schools. So I just had to like wander through the warehouse, pull the stuff off the shelves and put it in a big box. But always in jobs, you know, I try to like just keep a low profile. Like, I don't really want anyone to notice me. And the boss was like this really cranky woman who hated any mistakes. But I remember I was using box cutters to like make my box, and it like slipped, and I punctured this can of orange spray paint, and it went like just spraying all over the entire workstation and my hands. And yeah, that was one of the worst. That's the first thing that pops into my head.
How did you deal with it? Did you just say sorry and try and throw the can out?
Well, you know, I tried to hide it from the boss, but like my hands were like bright orange, and my whole workstation was like, had been tagged. I couldn't hide it. She caught me.
You're a painter. That's your tag. Your tag is just orange. Accidental orange.
Yeah.
Great. All right, Bill, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a lovely day ahead of you.
All right, thanks. You too.
So there was Bill Callahan here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. His new live in Chicago album, Resuscitate, is out now. You can get that through Drag City Records. And you can catch Bill on tour in Europe, in Ireland, and the UK. In next month, in September, find those dates online and try and bag a ticket if you can. Thanks so much for hearing this. If you liked it, make sure you subscribe to the show. As I said, we put out 2 episodes every week, and and we love what we do. It'd be great to have you along for it with us. Nice one. Thank you to DistroKid, our sponsor, which makes it super easy if you play in a band and you're trying to put out your music and have been struggling to find a record label of someone else to put out your record for you. You use DistroKid, it's super easy. It's one of the more affordable options out there, and you can get 30% off your first year if you sign up at distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 1 million plus users around the world use it, and getting your records on Spotify, Apple, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok and all the rest of it. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get 30% off your first year, and you're making all your own royalties yourself.
101 Part-Time Jobs is hosted by Giles Bidder and produced by me, Olivia Swash. This has been a Mighty Moon Media production. 12th, SON Estrella Galicia are back in London with their micro festival at Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage. With live music, beer culture, street food and workshops, SON Estrella Galicia is the musical arm of the family-owned independent Estrella Galicia beer brand, which has been creating unforgettable music experiences since 2009. The September the 12th event will be headlined by Coach Party with support from the New Weaves, as well as yet-to-be-announced DJ sets and local music selectors. There'll be a clothing repair workshop to customise your repaired clothes, a local food vendor serving 0 kilometre food with veggie and vegan options, a Soundcrafters interactive workshop, and a beer pouring workshop. Alongside the London event, there'll be a series of new micro-festivals in Madrid, A Coruña, Barcelona later in 2024, and Berlin and Granada in 2025, reflecting a truly global approach from SON Estrella Galicia. So if you're in London, September the 12th, swing by Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage for SON Estrella Galicia. Tickets are available now via Dice. As an independent music podcast, 101 Part-Time Jobs highly recommends DistroKid as the best solution to putting out your own music online. You can join 1 million other artists from all across the world putting out their own music on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else across the DSPs where people are listening to your music. My dream as a kid was to run a small little label, and now with DistroKid, getting music out online is the easiest it ever has been, making 100% of your own royalties while paying a small annual fee. And that fee's even smaller as a 101 Part-Time Jobs listener. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get 30% off your first year putting out your own music on DistroKid. Getting your own music out into the world has never been easier. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get the best deal you can.